I'm pregnant. My ex-girlfriend Sloane stood in my doorway, her hand resting on her stomach. 3 years after she'd walked out of my life without explanation. 3 years after she'd blocked my number and disappeared. It's yours, Barrett. From before we broke up. I need child support. My lawyer says you owe me 3 years of back payments. I stared at her, trying to process what I was hearing. That's impossible. We broke up 3 years ago. If you were pregnant. I didn't know until after. The baby's 2.5 now. His name is Owen. And legally, you're required to support him. She handed me legal papers. A paternity suit. Demanding $50,000 in back support, plus $3,000 monthly going forward. But here's what Sloane didn't know. I'm a private investigator. And when she walked out of my life without explanation 3 years ago, I spent 6 months digging into why. What I found destroyed me. But I documented everything. Every lie. Every betrayal. Every crime. She thought she'd gotten away with it. Thought her secret was safe. Thought she could waltz back into my life and take my money. She was about to learn that some secrets never stay buried. And when they surface, they destroy everything. Justice must be restored and liars must face consequences. You won't believe what her dark secret really was. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments if you've ever had an ex come back trying to manipulate you. This story is wild. My name is Barrett Wolf, and 4 years ago, I thought I'd found the love of my life. Sloane Hartwick was beautiful, charismatic, and when we met at a friend's barbecue in Portland, I fell hard. She was a pharmaceutical sales rep, drove a nice car, always dressed well. I was a private investigator running my own small firm. We seemed perfect together. We dated for 18 months. Moved in together after a year. Talked about marriage, kids, the future. I was ready to propose. Had the ring bought and everything. Then one Tuesday morning, I woke up and she was gone. Clothes packed. Note on the kitchen counter. I can't do this anymore. Don't try to contact me. It's over. Sloane. That was it. No explanation. No conversation. Just gone. When I called, her number was disconnected. When I went to her office, they said she'd quit 2 weeks earlier. Her social media deleted. Her friends refused to talk to me. For a month, I was destroyed. Couldn't understand what I'd done wrong. Replayed every conversation, every moment, looking for clues. Then my investigator instincts kicked in. Something wasn't right. People don't just vanish like that unless they're running from something. I started digging. Used every resource I had. Databases, contacts, surveillance techniques. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. Sloane had been living a double life. Her pharmaceutical sales job was a cover. She was actually working for a prescription drug theft ring, stealing medications from pharmacies and selling them on the black market. But that's not even the worst part. I found evidence that she'd been setting me up, planting stolen items in our apartment, using my car for her operations, creating a paper trail that would make me look complicit if the operation ever got busted. She'd been planning to use me as her fall guy. And when she realized the FBI was closing in on her operation, she disappeared, leaving breadcrumbs that pointed to me. I took everything I'd found to the FBI, handed over every piece of evidence, cleared my name before I was ever even suspected. The agents were impressed with my work. Mr. Wolf, this is exceptional investigative work. You may have just helped us break up the largest prescription drug theft ring in the Pacific Northwest. Where's Sloane now? I asked. Unknown. She disappeared before we could bring her in. We have warrants out, but she's gone underground. If she surfaces, we'll find her. That was 3 years ago. I'd moved on with my life. Threw myself into work. Started dating again. Healed from the betrayal. And now she was back, standing at my door, claiming I had a child I'd never met and demanding $50,000. I didn't let Sloane into my apartment. We talked in the hallway while I carefully recorded everything on my phone. Show me proof, I said. Birth certificate, medical records, pictures of this child. She pulled out her phone, showed me photos of a toddler. Cute kid, brown hair, green eyes. Could have been anyone's child. His birth certificate lists you as the father. Did you forge my signature on it? She flinched slightly. You have a legal obligation, Barrett. We can do this easy or hard. Your choice. I'll need a paternity test. Fine. My lawyer will arrange it. In the meantime, the court order requires you to start paying immediately. First payment is due in 2 weeks. After she left, I sat in my apartment, mind racing. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. First, the timeline didn't work. We'd been careful about protection. Sloan had been on birth control. The chances of her getting pregnant right before she left were minimal. Second, if she'd really been pregnant when she disappeared, why not tell me then? Why wait 3 years? Unless. I called my friend Pierce, an attorney who specialized in family law. Pierce, hypothetical question. If someone claims you're the father of a child, can they force you to pay support before a paternity test confirms it? Depends. If they have a court order based on your name being on the birth certificate, yes. You'd pay initially. Then if paternity is disproven, you could sue for repayment. What? I explained the situation. Pierce was quiet for a long moment. Barrett, this smells like a scam. Get that paternity test immediately. And don't pay a penny until you have genetic proof. Also, he hesitated. Didn't Sloan have active warrants? How is she even showing up at your place? He was right. The FBI had warrants out for her arrest. How was she walking around freely? That night, I did what I do best. I investigated. You won't believe what I discovered next. I found Sloan's new identity. She was living 3 hours away in Spokane under the name Sandra Hartley, working as a medical billing specialist, renting a small house. And yes, she had a 2-year-old son. But the father wasn't me. The father was her boyfriend of 4 years, a man named Trent Michaels. I found his social media. Found photos of him with the child. Found a photo from 2 months before Sloan and I broke up showing her visibly pregnant with the caption, "Can't wait to meet you, little man." She'd been pregnant with another man's child the entire time she was with me. And now she was trying to pin paternity on me for child support. But why? Why risk exposing herself when she had active federal warrants? I dug deeper. Found that Trent had recently lost his job. Found eviction notices on their rental house. Found court documents showing they were drowning in debt. Sloan was desperate for money. So desperate, she was willing to risk arrest to scam me for child support. Little did she know, I was documenting everything. And I was about to turn her entire scam into a trap. I didn't confront Sloan. Instead, I played along. Acted like a confused but cooperative father. Let her think her scam was working. Okay, I told her over text. I want to meet Owen. If he's my son, I want to be part of his life. She resisted at first, but I pressed. Sloan, you're asking me for $50,000 for a kid I've never met. The least you can do is let me see him. We arranged to meet at a park in Spokane. I brought my best surveillance equipment. Hidden cameras. Audio recording devices. Everything documented. Sloan showed up with the toddler. He was adorable. Looked nothing like me. Had his father's distinctive cleft chin that neither Sloan nor I have. Hey, Owen, I said gently, kneeling down. I'm Barrett. The kid looked at me with complete confusion. No recognition. No connection. Because we'd never met. While Sloan was distracted, I managed to collect a DNA sample from a juice box Owen drank from. Not the most elegant solution, but it would work for a private paternity test. I also took dozens of photos. Every angle. Capturing the child's distinctive features that clearly didn't match mine. He's got his father's chin, I said casually. Sloan tensed. What? That cleft chin. Distinctive. Must have come from your side of the family. Yeah, my grandfather had one. Another lie. I'd met Sloan's family. None of them had a cleft chin. This is where it gets really good. Over the next 2 weeks, I built an airtight case. The private DNA test came back negative, 0% probability of paternity. I gathered documentation proving Sloan had been pregnant before we broke up, when she was already involved with Trent. I compiled evidence of her new identity and her active federal warrants. Then I called the FBI agent who'd handled her case 3 years ago. Agent Morrison, this is Barrett Wolf. You worked on the prescription drug theft case involving Sloan Hartwick. I know where she is. Understood. Agent Morrison was very interested in what I had to say. She's using the name Sandra Hartley, living in Spokane, and she just tried to scam me for child support by claiming I'm the father of her child. Can you prove the child isn't yours? I have a negative paternity test. I also have evidence proving she was pregnant with another man's child before we even broke up. She forged documentation claiming I'm the father. That's fraud. We can add that to her existing charges. There's more. She's using a false identity, which is identity fraud. She's crossing state lines to commit the child support scam, which is potentially wire fraud. And she's doing all of this while evading federal warrants. Agent Morrison let out a low whistle. Mr. Wolf, you've been busy. Send me everything you have. I'll coordinate with local authorities in Spokane. I have a better idea, I said. She thinks I'm cooperating. I'm supposed to meet her tomorrow to hand over the first support payment. What if we use that meeting to bring her in? We spent the next day coordinating. The FBI, local Spokane PD, and me. The plan was simple. I'd meet Sloan in a public place, hand over a check, and the moment she accepted it, officers would move in. But I wanted more than just her arrest. I wanted her to understand exactly what she'd done, exactly why karma was about to destroy her. What Sloan didn't know was that in trying to scam me, she'd exposed herself to law enforcement after 3 years underground. Her desperation for money had made her sloppy, reckless, and I'd been documenting every single step of her crime. The meeting was set for a coffee shop in downtown Spokane. Public, busy, perfect for surveillance, but also for making an arrest. I arrived early, positioned myself at a corner table. The FBI and police were scattered throughout the shop and parking lot, blending in as customers. Sloan arrived with Owen in a stroller. She looked confident, smug, like she'd already won. "Do you have the payment?" she asked, sitting down. "I do. But first, I need to know something." "Why? Why me? Why now?" She sighed. "Barrett, you're making this more complicated than it needs to be. You're the father. You have responsibilities." "I'm not the father, Sloan. You know I'm not. That child has his actual father's cleft chin. You were already pregnant when you left me 3 years ago." Her face went pale. "That's not. I have a negative paternity test. I have photos proving you were pregnant before we broke up. I have evidence that Trent Michaels is Owen's biological father. I know you're in debt. I know you're desperate. And I know you're trying to scam me." She started to stand. "I'm leaving." "No, you're not. Because I have one more thing to tell you. Your real name is Sloan Hartwick. You have active federal warrants for your involvement in a prescription drug theft ring. And you just committed fraud by trying to extort child support for a child that isn't mine." Her eyes went wide with panic. She grabbed the stroller and tried to run. That's when Agent Morrison stepped forward with 2 uniformed officers. "Sloan Hartwick, you're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and evading federal warrants. You have the right to remain silent." They thought they were dealing with someone who'd just roll over and pay. They were about to learn they'd tried to scam someone who made a career out of exposing fraud. The arrest was swift and professional. Sloan screamed, claimed this was all a setup, that I was lying, that Owen was my son and I was abandoning him. But the officers had the paternity test, had the evidence of her fraud, had her real identity. "Ma'am, you have a 2-year-old warrant for felony drug trafficking," Agent Morrison said calmly. "The child support fraud is just an additional charge." A woman stepped forward from the crowd, a social worker. She took Owen's stroller. "We'll make sure the child is placed with appropriate family members while this is sorted out. His father is Trent Michaels," I told the social worker. "He lives about 5 minutes from here. I have his address." As they took Sloan away in handcuffs, she looked at me with pure hatred. "You ruined my life." "No," I said quietly. "You ruined your own life. I just made sure you faced consequences for it." The story made local news. Fugitive arrested in child support fraud scheme. The details were laid out. How Sloan had been on the run for 3 years. How she tried to scam her ex-boyfriend for support of a child that wasn't his. How her desperation had exposed her. My phone blew up. Friends asking if I was okay. Clients impressed by how I'd handled the situation. A few media requests for interviews, which I declined. But the best part was yet to come. In sorting out Owen's custody, the truth fully emerged. Trent hadn't known Sloan was on the run. Hadn't known about her past crimes. Hadn't known she'd been using a false identity. He'd thought he was in a relationship with Sandra Hartley, a medical billing specialist with a normal past. Learning she was actually a federal fugitive destroyed him. He immediately filed for sole custody of Owen, citing Sloan's criminal activity and fraud. Within a month, he had full custody and a restraining order preventing Sloan from contacting him or their son. Sloan was facing multiple felony charges: drug trafficking, identity theft, fraud, evading arrest. Her bail was set at $500,000. She couldn't afford it. She sat in jail awaiting trial. 3 months after her arrest, I received a call from the prosecutor's office. "Mr. Wolf, Sloan Hartwick wants to make a deal. She's offering to testify against her co-conspirators in the drug theft ring in exchange for a reduced sentence." We need to know if you'd be willing to testify about the fraud she attempted against you. Absolutely. Good. Be aware that this might get ugly. Her attorney is planning to argue that you entrapped her, that you deliberately lured her into committing fraud to get revenge. Let them try. I have evidence that she initiated contact. She came to me. She filed the fraudulent paternity claim. I just documented her crimes and reported them to the authorities. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks out. In the meantime, I went back to living my life. Working cases, going to the gym, dating, healing. The preliminary hearing was packed. Local media, curious onlookers, and everyone involved in the case. Sloan sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, looking small and defeated. Her attorney, a public defender who looked overwhelmed, shuffled papers nervously. The prosecutor laid out the case systematically. The drug theft ring from 3 years ago. Sloan's disappearance and creation of a false identity. Her recent attempt to defraud me. I did. Explained how we dated, how she disappeared, how I discovered her criminal activities and reported them to the FBI. And what happened when Ms. Hartwick contacted you 3 years later. She showed up at my apartment claiming I was the father of her child and demanding child support. She presented legal papers asking for $50,000 in back payments. Did you believe you were the father? No. The timeline didn't make sense. We'd been careful about protection, and I'm a private investigator. My instinct was that something was wrong. What did you do? I investigated. I found that she'd been pregnant before we broke up, that the child's biological father was her boyfriend Trent Michaels, and that she was using a false identity while evading federal warrants. Did you report this to authorities? I did. I contacted the FBI and provided all evidence of her fraud. Sloan's attorney cross-examined me. Mr. Wolf, isn't it true that you were angry at my client for ending your relationship? No. I was hurt initially, but I'd moved on. And yet when she needed help supporting a child, your first instinct was to investigate and ultimately have her arrested. That doesn't sound like someone who's moved on. My first instinct was to verify the claim. When I discovered she was committing fraud and evading federal warrants, I had a legal obligation to report it. You could have simply refused to pay and walked away. She filed legal papers, claimed I was legally obligated. If I'd ignored it, there would have been consequences for me. I protected myself by exposing the truth. The attorney tried a few more angles, but got nowhere. The evidence was too clear. The judge reviewed everything and made her ruling. Ms. Hartwick, the evidence against you is substantial. You are charged with felony fraud, identity theft, and evading federal arrest warrants, in addition to your original drug trafficking charges. I'm denying bail and remanding you to custody until trial. Sloan broke down crying. Please, I have a son. He needs his mother. You should have thought about your son before committing multiple felonies, the judge said coldly. And from the testimony I've heard, his father is providing appropriate care. What would you do in my situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The trial happened 4 months later. Sloan's defense attorney tried to paint her as a desperate mother who'd made mistakes. Tried to create sympathy, but the prosecution had everything. The drug theft ring evidence from 3 years ago. Documentation of her false identity. The fraudulent paternity claim. My testimony. Trent's testimony confirming he was Owen's father. Most damning were the recordings I'd made. In Oregon, only one party needs to consent to recording a conversation. I'd legally recorded every interaction with Sloan where she'd perpetrated her fraud. The jury heard her lying about paternity, heard her demanding money, heard her threatening legal action if I didn't pay. The verdict came back after 3 hours of deliberation. Guilty on all counts. The sentencing hearing was 2 weeks later. The prosecutor asked for the maximum sentence given Sloan's pattern of criminal behavior and lack of remorse. Her attorney argued for leniency. Your Honor, Ms. Hartwick is a mother. She made mistakes driven by desperation and poverty. She deserves a chance at redemption. The judge was unmoved. Ms. Hartwick, you engaged in serious criminal activity, fled from justice, created a false identity, and then attempted to defraud an innocent man by claiming he was the father of your child. This shows a pattern of manipulation, dishonesty, and criminal behavior. I see no remorse, only regret that you were caught. She sentenced Sloan to 6 years in federal prison for the drug trafficking charges, plus an additional 2 years for the fraud and identity theft, to be served consecutively. 8 years total. Sloan sobbed as the bailiff led her away. She'd miss Owen's entire childhood. Miss everything because her own greed and criminality had caught up with her. I felt no satisfaction, no joy, just relief that it was over. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked for a statement. "I'm glad justice was served," I said simply. "I hope this serves as a reminder that actions have consequences, and fraud always comes to light eventually." The case generated moderate media attention. A cautionary tale about someone trying to scam the wrong person. About how desperation leads to bad decisions. About karma. If you're enjoying watching Justice Served, hit that subscribe button. 6 months after Sloane's sentencing, I received a letter from her. The prison had forwarded it after screening. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity won. "Barrett, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know you hate me. I deserve that. I've had a lot of time to think about what I did. To you. To Trent. To Owen. I destroyed my own life because I was selfish and stupid. You were right about everything. I was pregnant with Trent's baby while we were together. I was involved in the drug theft ring. I used you as a cover and planned to make you the fall guy if things went wrong. When I realized the FBI was closing in, I ran like a coward. For 3 years, I lived under a fake name, terrified every day of being caught. When Trent lost his job and we were drowning in debt, I panicked. I thought I could scam you for child support because you were successful and wouldn't fight back. I was wrong about that too. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that what you did, exposing me, reporting me, making sure I faced consequences, that was the right thing to do. I was out of control. I would have kept hurting people if you hadn't stopped me. I'm going to be here for 8 years. Owen will be 10 when I get out. I've already lost him. Trent has full custody and won't let me have contact. I miss my son every day, and it's my own fault. I hope you have a good life, Barrett. You deserve it. You were always the decent one. Sloane." I read the letter 3 times. It seemed genuine, remorseful, like prison had given her perspective. I didn't write back. Didn't need to. This chapter of my life was closed. But I did call Trent, who I'd stayed in cordial contact with for Owen's sake. "How's he doing?" "Good. He's 3 now, talking up a storm. Asks about his mom sometimes. I tell him she's away, but loves him. That's the right approach. He deserves the truth when he's old enough to understand it." "Agreed. Listen, Barrett, thank you. For everything. If you hadn't exposed Sloane's lies, I'd still be with a criminal and my son would be growing up around that life. You saved us. I was protecting myself. But I'm glad it helped you too. That was 2 years ago. Sloane is still serving her sentence. She'll be released when she's 42 years old. Owen will be almost in middle school. I've moved on completely, dating someone wonderful named Autumn, who's a teacher. She knows the whole story and admires how I handled it. "You could have been vindictive," she said once. "You could have made it public and humiliated Sloane beyond the legal consequences. But you just let the system work. Revenge isn't about humiliation. It's about justice. She faced consequences for her actions. That's enough. I still work as a private investigator. The case actually boosted my reputation. People saw that I was thorough, strategic, and ethical even when personally involved. I occasionally think about Sloane. Wonder if she's genuinely changed or if the remorseful letter was manipulation. Hope that she uses her time in prison to actually transform. But mostly, I don't think about her at all. She's a closed chapter in my life. The lesson I learned? Trust your instincts. When something doesn't add up, investigate. When someone tries to manipulate you, document everything. When fraud occurs, report it. And most importantly, some people will always choose the easy, dishonest path over doing what's right. When those people enter your life, the best revenge is simply exposing the truth and letting consequences unfold naturally. Justice was served, and truth had the final word. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Drop a comment about the craziest X story you've ever heard. And subscribe for more stories where liars get exposed and justice actually wins. Remember, the truth always comes out eventually. And when it does, make sure you're on the right side of it.